What's up, folks? Thank you so much for joining me for my review for Star Trek III, The Search for Spock. What the fuck was this? It was directed by Leonard Nimoy, and it was also released on June 1st, 1984. Star Trek III! Star Trek III, The Search for Spock. It's a movie. So, you're gonna have to forgive me. I have a little bit of the sniffles. No, it's not that. It is allergy season. Lemon pepper. Star Trek III, The Search for Spock stars William Shatner, Leonard Nimoy, DeForest Kelley, James Doohan, and everyone else that's been in Star Trek, basically. I don't have to go through the whole cast, do I, guys? Stars all these guys! Anyway, so Star Trek III brings back the crew of the Enterprise. However, what I loved about Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, was that it brought back Star Trek where it needed to be. See, on paper, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan is a revenge action thriller. And that's not what Star Trek is. But what made that movie more Star Trek than anything was the characters. It was the characters themselves. The characters understood where they were at this point in their life. I mean, they are in their 50s, okay? Late 40s or 50s. Admiral Kirk turned 50 and he was depressed about it. But of course, in the movie, it was about facing all of these things that you are afraid of. Facing your fears, facing death. He lost his best friend. He lost his brother towards the end of the movie. So where is Admiral Kirk and the crew of the Enterprise at now, at this point? And in Star Trek III, you could definitely feel the presence of Khan throughout half of the movie. I mean, because of the Enterprise and the effects of everything that's happened, Spock's death, etc., you definitely feel it known there. And so in the movie, we're also faced with Admiral Kirk and the crew facing the fact that the Enterprise may be decommissioned. Going back and revisiting this movie, I haven't seen this movie as a whole in years. I always go back and watch, clips of this from YouTube or going on Amazon Prime and just watching a moment or anything, just whatever, But really sitting there and watching Star Trek II and then Star Trek III right after, you totally feel the night and day difference between the direction of the films. I'm not knocking on Leonard Nimoy or anything. I love Leonard Nimoy's directing style. It's showcased very well in the next feature, but in this movie you could tell it's the director's first time, maybe, and maybe if it wasn't his first time, it just felt like it was a movie that had a lot of static shots. There was just a lot. It felt like a made-for-TV movie compared to the second movie. We've got Chirstopher Lloyd as the main villain, Commander Krug. It's a very underwhelming movie compared to Star Trek II. I love the motion picture. Now, a lot of people will say, well, Star Trek III is leaps and bounds better than Star Trek the motion picture because that's the boring one. Star Trek III had the potential to do something different and be more, I guess you could say, a movie that can really be, I hate this fucking word, but I'm going to use it, epic in a sense, where you have the middle part of an unofficial trilogy, which is Star Trek III, The Search for Spock, where Star Trek II began that trilogy, okay? But really it was technically Star Trek II. But you see what I'm saying. You see where I'm going with this. My favorite moment in this movie, though, and hands down, it's my favorite moment in any of the Star Trek films, possibly in any Star Trek anything, of course, is when Admiral Kirk and the crew, they want to go save their friend. They know that their friend is alive on that planet. So what are they going to do? They want to go take the Enterprise, take a starship, anything, go down to the Genesis planet and get his ass. But the Enterprise is about to be decommissioned. The Genesis planet, the Genesis anything, the topic of Genesis is a forbidden subject. You cannot talk about it. It's classified. So what are they going to do? Admiral Kirk and the crew, they develop a strategy, an idea to go and get the Enterprise anyway and go and save their best friend, their brother, Spock. It was beautiful. It was just, it's wonderful. From Scotty sabotaging the USS Excelsior, Scotty possibly hacking through space dock doors to open so that way the Enterprise can escape. It was just wonderful. It was a great moment. That entire sequence from Kirk going onto the bridge and giving that speech to his crew and the crew honoring him and everything, and then backing up, the music from James Horner was just absolute brilliance. I mean, talk about music without any visuals. You could listen to that entire score of that scene, okay, and just feel the suspense. You feel the stake. And that, unfortunately, is the only moment in the movie where I felt that there was some sort of stake. And it should have been where the entire time, you know, are they going to get Spock or not? I mean, you got the title, The Search for Spock. I mean, how can you... Yeah, of course they're going to get Spock's going to come back in a movie called Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock. But are they? You know, like you could kind of misdirect the audience in a sense and give them the feel that, hey, maybe this won't work out, but it does, you know? And just didn't get that. It just felt so underwhelming in a sense where it's like, oh, they're there. And that's also a thing that I absolutely just, I cringe. But it was fine. I thought it was fine. It moved the story forward. It kind of needed to happen. But it's one of the most tragic death scenes for me in a movie. And no, I'm not talking about David. I'm talking about the Enterprise. The Enterprise. The destruction of the USS Enterprise. Ugh! Gets me in the feels. They showed the destruction of the Enterprise in the marketing. Isn't that crazy? In the marketing. They really didn't touch on it too much in the documentary, but I just thought that was just... If I was, after watching Wrath of Khan and just looking forward towards the next film, and then I can imagine, you don't have social media at the time, so there's no spoilers, there's no leaks, but then when the marketing on television shows one of the biggest spoilers in the movie... Fuck. This was DeForest Kelley's movie. At the end of Star Trek II, okay, we see that Spock gives Bones the Vulcan neck pinch, shut his ass down, basically, places his hands on Bones' face, and says, remember. Giving him all of Spock's Katra.
Katra. Holy shit!
DeForest Kelley went from Dr. McCoy and throwing some Spockisms and really kind of channeling a little bit of some Leonard Nimoy there. And it was interesting that the man can just switch. And it really, people don't talk about it a lot. But as somebody who has watched this movie as a whole, right now, in 2020, okay, really paying attention to this shit, it's interesting. It was a movie that I didn't realize, like, oh wait, this is Bones' movie. You know, where we have Star Trek II, it was Kirk's movie. This was Bones' film. And so this was a way for, I think, for DeForest Kelley to kind of, you know, stretch out his acting chops a bit, you know, to give, he's been given material that I don't think he expected. I mean, this was a lot of stuff. I mean, look, if I was DeForest Kelley playing Bones and I'm reading page after page after page and it's all Dr. McCoy shit, you know, and throughout that script, he was kind of the star of the movie, and it's not talked about. So I kind of wanted to throw that out there in this review, that DeForest Kelley knocked it out of the park in this movie. As a whole, this movie is underwhelming. It's a good movie. It's not a great movie, but you definitely feel the difference between Trek 2 and Trek 3, even though they're pretty much all in one the same movie, just split into two parts. You definitely feel the difference in the direction. But other than that, you've got performances that were great. You've got action scenes that were fantastic. And I mean, look, Industrial Light and Magic, they kicked ass in this movie, especially the space dock sequences, where all the miniatures, the models, all of that stuff, from the lighting of the Enterprise approaching the camera with the Excelsior behind, it was beautiful. It was a movie that, on technical stand, it was wonderful. They have knocked it. The special effects in this film were just a bit better than they were in Wrath of Khan. However, I wish the movie as a whole would have done that, but it's fine. Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, is going to get a 3 out of 5. It's hard because I feel like I'm knocking this movie down, but I'm really not. It's a fine film. It really is. It's a good movie. Check it out. Watch it. I would say it's definitely worth a watch after watching Star Trek 2. Just don't expect Star Trek 2. Folks, thank you so much for watching my review for Star Trek 3 and also for joining me for my Star Trek reviews. I will be back with Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home. That one is going to be a lot of fun to watch and review as well. But until then, I'm out. Peace.
Lost in the world of past, in the echo of ancient west. There is a man from future, a man of myth.